Once upon a time, in the peaceful village of Lillibrook, there stood a peculiar old tree in the center of the Whispering Woods. It was no ordinary tree. Its bark shimmered silver under moonlight, and instead of leaves, tiny golden stars clung to its branches. The villagers called it the Midnight Tree, and it only bloomed once a year on the longest night, when the stars were brightest. No one really knew where the tree had come from. Some said it was a gift from the moon herself. Others whispered that it had grown from a fallen star. But everyone agreed on one thing: the Midnight Tree was magical. In this village lived a curious little girl named Lila. She had wild chestnut curls and bright eyes that always seemed to be searching for something. Lila loved stories more than anything, especially the kind about stars, moons, dragons, and hidden magic. Every night, she would climb onto her windowsill and look at the sky. One day, she whispered, "I'll find out where stars come from." She had asked her grandmother once, and her grandmother smiled mysteriously and said, "Some things, dear heart, are meant to be found only when the stars think you're ready." Well, Lila thought she was ready. Very ready. On the eve of the longest night, excitement buzzed through Lillibrook like bees in spring. That was the night the Midnight Tree would bloom, and one of its golden stars would fall. It was said that whoever caught the star would be granted a wish. But there was one rule. You could only wish for something pure of heart, something kind, something brave, or something full of love. Lila knew what she would wish for. She would wish to follow the falling star back to where it came from. Because if anyone could figure out where stars were born, it would be her. So, she packed a tiny satchel, one cookie, her sketchbook, a pencil, a scarf her grandma knitted, and a small glass jar in case she needed to collect stardust. That night, as the village gathered around the glowing tree, Lila stood quietly beneath the lowest branch. Her heart thumped like a little drum. And then, with a twinkle and a sigh, one star blinked and tumbled down like a feather in the wind. Lila didn't hesitate. She leapt up, cupped her hands, and caught it. It was warm and whispering. "Hello," she said. The star wiggled in her palm and pulsed with soft light. Then, whoosh, it burst into sparks, and before Lila could blink, a doorway shimmered open in the trunk of the Midnight Tree. The villagers gasped, but Lila grinned. "Ready," she whispered, and stepped through. The inside of the tree wasn't wood at all, it was sky. She was floating in a vast, velvety space filled with glowing orbs, drifting feathers of light, and winding staircases that curled around invisible paths. The air hummed with music like laughter and lullabies. "Welcome, Starcatcher," came a voice like wind chimes. Lila spun around. Hovering in the air was a tall figure made of twinkling stars, wearing a robe of night sky and comets. "I am the Starkeeper," he said, bowing. "You're real," Lila breathed. "I am. And so are you. I want to know where stars come from." He smiled. "Then come with me." Lila and the Starkeeper journeyed through realms no book had ever written about. They rode on silver-winged owls over the Sea of Dreams, where sleeping whales sang lullabies to the moon. They passed through the Mirror Meadow, where the stars practiced their twinkles. They climbed the spiral bridge made of moonlight until they reached the Celestial Cradle, the nursery of stars. There, she saw tiny lights growing on vines, humming softly in their sleep. "This is where they are born," said the Starkeeper gently. "Each one starts as a wish, a dream, a brave act, and becomes a spark." Lila's eyes grew wide. "So, stars come from us?" He nodded. "From kindness, courage, and wonder." Every time someone chooses love over fear, a new star begins to grow. Lila felt something warm in her chest. That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. It's also why we must protect them. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. The light dimmed. "Uh-oh," said the Starkeeper. Out of the dark floated a swirling creature of smoke, the Whisper Wraith. It fed on forgotten dreams and fading hope. And now it was trying to eat the baby stars. "We have to stop it," Lila cried. But the Starkeeper looked weary. "I am growing old. I can guard the stars no longer. That's why I brought you here." "Me? But I'm just me. You are a starcatcher. You saw beyond the wish. You came not to take, but to learn. That's rare." Lila took a breath. Her fingers reached into her satchel and pulled out the one thing she knew the Wraith couldn't touch, her sketchbook. She opened it and showed it the picture she had drawn of the midnight tree, of the village, of her grandmother's smiling face, of stars dancing above. The Wraith recoiled. Then, Lila began to sing a lullaby her grandmother used to hum when storms frightened her. The stars around her pulsed brighter, and the Wraith slowly began to dissolve, piece by piece, into glittering dust, until it was no more than a breeze. The cradle sighed in relief. The baby stars glowed brighter. "You've done it," said the Starkeeper. "I did it," Lila whispered. The Starkeeper smiled. "It is time for me to rest, and for you to guide the stars. But what about my home?" He knelt beside her. "You can visit whenever you wish. The midnight tree will always open to a starcatcher." He handed her a crystal pendant. Inside it danced a single flickering star. "This will help you return." Lila hugged him tightly. Then, with a soft swirl of stardust, she was standing beneath the tree once more, in the middle of the village, just before sunrise. The villagers, still blinking in awe, crowded around her. "What happened? Where did you go?" Lila smiled and looked up at the stars. "I went where dreams begin." From that night on, Lila still climbed onto her windowsill, not to wonder where stars came from, but to make sure they were safe, happy, and shining bright. And sometimes, if a child with a kind heart stood beneath the midnight tree and made a wish, they, too, might find themselves walking among the stars. But only if they were ready. The end.